Good morning, my dear students. Welcome back. Let us continue with our lesson number 4, the Delhi Sultanate. Today we are going to discuss about the Khilji Sultans, that is the Khilji dynasty. Jalaluddin Khilji was the founder of the Khilji dynasty, and he was very old. He was around 70 years old, and his own nephew, whose name was Alauddin Khilji, he had married the daughter of Jalaluddin Khilji. So he was also his nephew and he was also his son-in-law. He was very ambitious and he wanted to become the ruler. So he murdered Jalaluddin Khilji and he became the ruler of Delhi. Now let us learn in detail about Alauddin Khilji. As I told you earlier, Alauddin Khilji was an ambitious young man and he actually was believer of defense, consolidation and expansion. That means if there is any attack from the enemies, then he was capable enough to defend his territories and consolidate and expansion. He wanted to consolidate all the territories which was under him and make it as one united big vast empire, and the neighboring states also he wanted to conquer and expand his territories, and he wanted to be called like the Alexander, and he was also called as the conqueror of the world, second conqueror of the world like Alexander or Sikandar Sani. So during Alauddin Khilji's reign, the Mongols actually were invaded in India and they invaded nearly 5 times, but every time they were defeated by the army of Alauddin Khilji. But still, they financially there was a loss to his army, and that is why now he was thinking seriously about making arrangements to check the Mongols. He had also conquered Gujarat, Ranthambore, Chittor and Malwa, and he had defeated the Rana Ratan Singh Ji of Chittor and wanted to marry the Queen Padmavati. She was very beautiful and he wanted to marry her. But later on, the Queen Padmavati, she performed Johar and she killed her by jumping into the flames of fire. So Johar is actually Johar was actually performed by the women, Rajput women that time, as they used to think that it is better to be killed, better to kill ourselves rather than being dishonored by the enemies. And that is why the Rajput ladies, when the rulers used to be defeated, then these ladies they used to perform Johar. And Alauddin Khilji also attacked, plundered and destroyed many temples in different cities like Mandu, Ujjain, Dhar and Chanderi in Malwa. So for the conquest of Deccan, he appointed Malik Kafur, and Malik Kafur conquered different places in Deccan like Devagiri, Warangal, Dwarasamudra, Madurai. All these places he got control over, and finally Alauddin was actually a far-sighted statesman, दूरदर्शी थे, इसलिए for this purpose his chief aim in conquering the Deccan was economic rather than religious or political, and he made the rajas of these places as his vassals. Vassals are actually the people, like they used to give them land grants, so he made them vassals, जिसको हम हिंदी में जागीरदार कहते हैं. So the same rulers of these places, they were appointed as his jagirdars, and he used to take annual tributes from these vassals, and he collected great wealth from these rulers. Alauddin also adopted this policy because the south was far off from Delhi and it was very difficult for him to directly rule on these places. So now we are going to see administration of Alauddin Khilji. Alauddin Khilji was actually a very abled administrator, and he had done many reforms for keeping control over the nobles. And these reforms actually included, like first one, the land and property which was given to the nobles as iktas, that was taken back from the nobles. Second, marriage parties and social gatherings of nobles were restricted. Third, drinking wine in public was prohibited. Number 4, an efficient spy system was organized. This spy system used to keep on informing the king about the happenings in the state. Next, excess of money from the nobles was extracted by heavy taxes. And number 6, the price of all articles was fixed so that no shopkeeper can cheat the common people by raising the prices of essential goods. Next, market officers were also appointed to keep a check on the prices, whether the prices which are fixed by the government, the shopkeepers are selling the things on the same prices, or they have raised the prices according to their wish. So that was checked by the market officers. Land revenue for all the lands was refixed, and especially in the Doab, the fertile land between the Ganga and Yamuna rivers, the tax was raised up to 1/2 of the total produce. Earlier it was 1/6 or 1/4, and then it was raised to 1/2 of the total produce. So the revenue records were also kept up to date. And Alauddin Khilji, he died in AD 1316, and after that the Khalji dynasty fell, and then the Tughlaq dynasty started. So let us now learn about the Tughlaq dynasty. So the Tughlaq dynasty was one of the most important dynasties of the Delhi Sultanate, and now let us learn about the rulers of this Tughlaq dynasty one by one. So Ghiyazuddin Tughlaq was the founder of the Tughlaq dynasty, and his actual name was Ghazi Malik. So he started ruling. First he defeated the Khusro Khan, the Khalji ruler, and then he became the ruler. He also made many changes in the judiciary and police departments, and he carried out many works of public utility, like canals were dug, gardens were planted, many forts were also built for the protection of the people. He built a new city of Tughlaqabad near Delhi, and the Sultan was killed in AD 1325, and his death was mysterious. And after his death, Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he became the ruler. So Muhammad bin Tughlaq actually was a very scholared man. He was a learned man, and he was the scholar of different subjects like mathematics, philosophy, astronomy, logic, medicine, physical science, all these. He was also a very good poet and a good orator. He had a sharp memory, but all his scholarly qualities failed him in his practical life. And according to the Ibn Battuta, he says that he was also called as the mixture of opposites. This was because, according to Ibn Battuta, Muhammad bin Tughlaq uh, was a strange man. He had offended the Orthodox Ulama. Orthodox Ulama, actually, the people, those who were following the Muslim religion strictly. Ulama is actually that जिसको हम कट्टर मुसलमान कहते हैं. Okay, so he had offended the Orthodox Ulama, and some of his plans did look strange, and almost it ruined his empire. So these plans were as follows. First was the transfer of capital. So all the sultans had kept Delhi their capital, but Muhammad bin Tughlaq, he decided to shift his capital city from Delhi to Devagiri in Deccan, and he gave it a new name as Daulatabad. And because of this, people had to shift from Delhi to Daulatabad, which was far away, and it took lot of expense also. So royal treasury was emptied because of this, because the royal palace was built over there, and the new offices also were built there. So people were not happy with this, and this foolishness of the sultan not only cost a huge sum to the treasury, but also caused death and misery to the people of Delhi. And for years after that, Delhi wore a disastered look and did not regain its earlier grandeur. So second is the token currency. The failure of his plans and the reckless generosity of the sultan caused a heavy drain on the treasury. He issued a token currency. Copper coins were introduced by him, which had the same value as of those of gold and silver. And because of this step also proved disastrous, because gold and silver currency disappeared from the market, and the goldsmith, they stopped making these gold and silver coins, and they started making copper coins at their homes. And as the government had no control over the currency, these coins easily came into circulation, and as a result of this, trade suffered a lot, and the foreign traders, those who were investing money here, they also were at lost. They lost faith in the currency. They thought that how the gold and silver currency have lost importance, same way sometime this copper currency also will lose importance, and that is why they stopped investing in trade here, and the whole financial system of the state began to collapse because of this. So the sultan ordered the copper currency to be returned and exchanged with gold and silver coins at the state treasury. So this step also resulted in a great loss to the government. Next was the taxation in the Doab. So taxation in the Doab, according to this, the Ganga Yamuna Doab was considered to be the fertile land, and more of the tax was coming from this area. So in this area, the time when the people were suffering from famine, so they were not having enough food to eat also, and that time Sultan increased the taxes. There was great discontentment because of this among the people, and they could not pay the taxes. So when the Sultan finally came to know about this reality, after that he made a new department of agriculture to improve the production, but that was of no use after that. Then the other visionary plans, we are going to learn about the other visionary plans. So these other visionary plans actually to keep the Mongol warriors peaceful, he had given a huge sum of money, and whether he faced their threat to make them retreat. So amid difficult financial conditions, he planned to conquer China and Persia. That was also one of the wrong step taken by him. So Muhammad bin Tughlaq, that was the reason for the fall of his dynasty, and after his rule, he was not having any son. So his cousin Firoz Shah Tughlaq, he became the ruler. He had built many houses for the people. Charity department also was built by him. Firoz Shah also built the fort named Firoz Shah Kotla. He did take measures to strengthen his rule, but there occurred a general decline of the Sultanate within 2 decades of his death. And in order to please the Orthodox Ulama, he imposed Jazia tax, that was for non-Muslims. Only the non-Muslims were supposed to pay that tax. So the people were not happy with this, and he also made the he also made the Iktas hereditary. That was also one of the reasons. So he founded the new cities Firozpur, Jaunpur, and Firozabad. So all these new cities were founded by him. He also constructed many dams, canals, mosques, and madrasas. Madrasas are actually the schools for the Muslim children. So now we are going to see the downfall of the Tughlaq Empire and the invasion of Timur. Now Tughlaq, actually the successors of Firoz Shah Tughlaq, they were not very good, they were weak rulers, and because of that Amir Timur, who is also called as Timurai Lang, he was the Mongol king and a great conqueror from Central Asia. He came to India and he brought great miseries to the people of India. He took the control over whole of the Central Asia and Persia, and his wish of conquering more and more land brought him to India, and he also wanted to spread Islam here. So there was no strong opposition to him in Punjab, and so Timur reached the gates of Delhi very easily and very soon. Then after that Timur appointed Khizr Khan as his viceroy at Lahore, and he also took the thousands of craftsmen and mechanics to his own country from here, and he left destruction all over. And because of this, North India could not recover from this blow for quite long time. And then Timur's invasion actually opened the way for Babur's invasion of India. After that, the Sayyid dynasty started. So after the death of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, Khizr Khan, who was appointed as the viceroy at Lahore, he defeated the Daulat Khan and he became the ruler. He occupied the throne of Delhi. Then he laid the foundation of the new dynasty that was called as Sayyid dynasty. This dynasty actually ruled till AD 1451, and the last ruler, whose name was Alauddin Alam Shah, he was defeated by Behlul Lodi, who was the Lodi chief and the governor of Lahore. From then the Lodi dynasty started. So Behlul Lodi is considered to be the founder of the Lodi dynasty, and he was a very generous and pious ruler. Pious actually means the one who has a deep faith or belief in religion. and he brought peace and order in the country. And in AD 1488, Bahlul Lodi he died, and after his death, his son Sikandar Lodi he became the ruler. So Sikandar Lodi became the ruler in AD 1488, and he is believed to be the greatest ruler of the Lodi dynasty. And in AD 1503, he founded the city of Agra, and he made Agra the headquarters of his army. Sikandar was a great administrator, and in AD 1517 he fell ill and then he died. After his death, his son Ibrahim Lodi he became the ruler. Ibrahim Lodi was the son of Sikandar Lodi, and he sat on the throne of Delhi in AD 1517. ही वॉज पेविश एंड इल टेम्पर्ड. पेविश एक्चुअली मीन्स जो बहुत जल्दी छोटी छोटी बातों पे गुस्सा हो जाते हैं, चिड़चिड़े स्वभाव के होते हैं. सो बिकॉज ऑफ इल टेम्परामेंट ही लॉस्ट द सिंपथी ऑफ हिज रिलेटिव्स एंड हिज नोबल्स. सो हिज रिलेटिव्स एंड हिज नोबल्स दे स्टार्टेड रिवोल्टिंग अगेंस्ट हिम. And finally his uncle Alam Khan, he went to Babur, who was the ruler of Afghanistan that time, and he requested him to invade India and defeat Ibrahim Lodi. So finally Babur, who was the Mughal king of Afghanistan, he invaded India and he reached Panipat near Delhi. And in AD 1526 there was a fierce battle between Ibrahim Lodi and Babur, and finally Ibrahim Lodi was defeated and he was killed. And from there Babur founded the Mughal Empire. This was the beginning of the Mughal Empire in India. Now we are going to learn about the Mongols. The Mongols actually they were a cruel tribe of Central Asia, and they were the natives of Mongolia. They actually were very cruel. They took pleasure in plundering, burning and killing the people. And even Amir Khusro, who was a great scholar, he used to call them white demons, and according to him they were made by God from the hellfire. So they continued to invade India beginning from the reign of Iltutmish till the Muhammad bin Tughlaq's reign. And they created so many problems, not only for the common people whom they killed in thousands, but also for the Delhi Sultans, who had to keep a strong army to check their raids and pay great attention towards the northwest frontier. And in the reign of Jalaluddin Khilji, the Mongols they suffered a defeat, but still they provided the colony near Delhi for the Mongols, those who wanted to settle down here. So that was a mistake by him. Now we are going to see the causes of the downfall of the Delhi Sultanate. There were many reasons for the downfall of Delhi Sultanate. First was they never tried to win the confidence of their subjects. Subjects here means people of the kingdom. Second, most of the sultans were intolerant towards the Hindus, and the Hindus were not treated properly. They were forcibly converted to Islam, and their temples were also destroyed destroyed by them. And they made to pay the Jizya tax for the Hindus. That was also one of the reason. And even the Hindus who converted to Islam, they could not enjoy the confidence of the sultans and the Turkish nobility. Next was most of the sultans were pleasure loving and weak rulers. The nobles were opportunist and revolted whenever they found the occasion for that. They lacked loyalty to the sultan. The nobles were not loyal to the sultan, and whenever they used to get the opportunity, they used to kill the sultan and they used to take the power in their hand. So army was also not organized and disciplined, and the vast empire was also a big problem for them. There was no good communication or transport system because of this, and the Jagirdari system was also not good. It was ruinous, and there was no definite law of succession. Only the sword could decide the succession. Those who had power, those who were capable of, they used to become the ruler by killing the earlier sultan. So there was no definite law of succession, and the invasions of the Mongols also weakened the empire. So all these were the reasons for the downfall of the Delhi Sultanate. Now we are going to see the development of the political institutions during the Sultanate period. The Sultan actually ruled with the help of nobles, and the law was based on the Islamic tradition. The power of the Sultan was based on the military forces. He administrated all the functions of the government, and the government was run under various departments, like how we have different departments nowadays: finance minister, defense minister, health minister, railway minister. Like that, they also used to have different departments, and the heads were made. So each department was supervised by a minister or a high officer. The wazir was the chief minister. He headed the divanai wazirat. Then the bakshi was the paymaster of the army. The qazi was the chief justice, and the justice was based on the Muslim law. And the department of divanai insha looked after the state correspondence. The divanai islat looked after religious affairs and education, and the provincial government reflected the same setup as the center. Provincial government, like nowadays how we have state government, like that it was called provincial government that time. So same as central government, the provincial government was also working. The heads of the provinces were known as wali and mufti. Nowadays the head of the state is called as the governor and the chief minister. They used to call them wali and mufti. And the provinces were further divided into sheikhs and parganas, like how the states nowadays are divided into districts. Like that, it was divided into sheikhs and parganas. A group of village collectively formed a pargana. Many villages together, it formed a pargana, and the pargana was headed by an amil. Amil was the head of the pargana. Now we are going to see the strategies of military control. So to have a control over military, actually the sultan's existence was dependent on the efficiency of his army, and the Sultan of Delhi had conquered various parts of India with the help of his army. Not only this, he also checked the foreign invasions with the help of his army, with the help of his military force, and if they maintained law and order in the state, that was also with the help of his army. So military force was again very important, necessary for supporting the rebellious nobles and governors. The nobles who used to be rebellious against the government, then they were also stopped with the help of the army. So without strong military force, they could not even think of their existence. Hence they used all strategies of military control. They had good military control. Now let us see the relationship between rulers. So all the Delhi sultans, they maintained a good, cordial, friendly relationship with the Muslim rulers, but these relationships were more superficial than real. Actually, in real, it was not so good. It used to just seem as if they are good friends. With the least provocation, they would fight against each other and did not hesitate to attack their territories when they found them in trouble. So if they used to feel that there is a threat to their kingship, then they were very easily ready to fight against each other. So nearly 19 out of 25 Delhi sultans were assassinated, and only their ability and luck could keep them on the throne. Now we are going to see the court, nobility and land control. So first we are going to see the court. In order to carry out the day-to-day business and to receive the visitors, the Delhi sultans had maintained a good, splendid court of their own, and the officers, they were given seats according to their seniority and their loyalty, and the princes were given the front seats, and the royal court was generally a part of the royal place, and the heads of the different departments were also present there to answer any question if it is asked by the sultan. And the sultans like Balban had forbidden the courtiers to even laugh in the court. They were not allowed to even laugh in the court. It was strictly followed by the courtiers. Nobility, now we are going to see. So most of those nobles who belonged to the Turkish or Afghan families which had settled in India, but after the time of Alauddin Khilji, the Indian Muslims and Hindus were also allowed in the court, and they were appointed as officers. Instead of paying salary by cash, most of the Delhi sultans, they gave them jagirs. And in spite of all this, the nobles had enough money for themselves, and they lived in great luxury. They were leading their life in great luxury. Now let us see land control, what the sultans did to have control over the land. So land revenue was the most important source of income of the Delhi sultans. and some of the land was reserved for sultan, and the revenue from such land was actually used for the sultan's personal expenses, and the revenue from these lands were fixed at 1/3 of the produce, and this was treated as the share of the state, and the rest of the land was distributed among the different officers, nobles and governors. And there was a separate agricultural department which was known as Diwanai Amir Kohi, and this department looked after the work of the land revenue, and different officers such as the Muqaddams, Patwaris, they helped him in the land revenue collections. Now we are going to see the resource mobilization. So the kharaj or the land revenue. The land revenue was the major source of their income, as I told you earlier, and it was generally raised up to 1/5 of the total produce through the sultans like Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq raised it to half of the total produce. Second was the jazia tax. It was imposed only on the non-Muslims, as I told you earlier. Only the Hindus were supposed to pay this tax. So it is believed that children, women and Farias were exempted from this payment. They were not supposed to give the taxes. Farias actually means tapasvi. Okay. So it was released at the rate of 10 to 40 takas depending on the prayer's income. So children, women and Farias, that is the tapasvis, they were not supposed to give this tax. The octroi duty, this means that it was realized on the exchange and transportation of commercial goods. So when the commercial goods were transported from one place to another, then they had to pay this octroi duty test and tax. And the zakat tax, it was a negligible tax supposed to be paid by all the Muslims. And other sources of income were like it included the state's share in booty, which was calculated at 1/5 of the plunder plus gifts, tributes, etc. from the subordinate rulers. So booty actually means लूट का माल, जो भी लूट का माल आता था और जो भी गिफ्ट्स होते थे, जो भी ट्रिब्यूट्स उन्हें मिलते थे अपने से नीचे तबके के जो लोग हैं या नीचे दर्जे के जो रूलर्स हैं, उनसे जो भी इस तरह का माल उन्हें बरामद होता था, दैट यूज टू फॉर्म द अदर सोर्सेस ऑफ इनकम. So I hope you all have understood the chapter, children. So please read it carefully at home, and today I will be sending the question answers of this chapter. So please do it in your copy. Thank you, children. God bless you all.